Hello and welcome to Gladys Cake Kitchen. In today's video, I am going to be sharing with you how to make this very simple, easy and quick chocolate cake recipe that is bound to be a crowd pleaser, especially if you're a beginner baker looking for that very moist and decadent cake. This cake right here is filled with ganache, some Biscoff spread covered in ganache, swirls of ganache atop and some Biscoff biscuit to finish the final decoration. This particular recipe and decoration is quite easy to adapt in many forms, and especially with Easter around the corner, you will be spoiled for choice to adapt this into an Easter egg nest chocolate cake. But please don't take my word for it. You're gonna have to try it and find out for yourself what you think of this particular chocolate cake. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is Gladys and welcome. I hope you find value in my video, and if you do, please consider subscribing. Click the notification bell to be notified of videos like this and more, and do like and share my video. And with that plug out of the way, let's just get baking. To start with, I am going to make the ganache, which is going to be used as a filling and for the covering of the cake. There is 1.2 kilograms of milk and white chocolate mixed together, 100 grams of butter and 400 mils of double cream. Now these can be combined over a double boiler or a bain-marie, but as we are sticking with a very simple and quick recipe, I'm going to go and put this in the microwave, which should heat up together. I will put all the heating instructions and the times that you need in the description box, so please do check that below. The chocolate and double cream mixture is back from the microwave. I popped it in the microwave for the first 3 minutes, took it out, stirred it in slightly, and then put it back in for another 2.5 minutes, which has brought it to this mixture. So I'm going to stir it in and hopefully it mixes together. Be careful not to mix it vigorously, as that will whip too much air into it. But of course, later I will be whipping this ganache to make it very fluffy and smooth for spreading over the cake. If you're wondering why I made the ganache first, that is because I will need the ganache to set whilst the cake is being prepped. So by the time I finish making the cake, the ganache will be ready for spreading and filling the cake. And with 5.5 minutes in the microwave, this is the consistency we're looking for. And with that, I'm going to put this ganache on the side to set whilst we move on to the next part of our baking process. Hello and welcome back. With the ganache left to set, I'm moving on to the next part of the bake, which is making the chocolate cake itself. In a saucepan here, I'm going to combine a few ingredients. But first, in this bowl is 2 spoonfuls of espresso powder, which I am going to pour into 375 mils of hot water. This is essentially some coffee, I will say, which goes straight into the saucepan. Coffee tends to intensify the chocolate flavor in a chocolate cake, but if you do not care for coffee, you can eliminate that altogether and replace the coffee with just warm water, some Coca-Cola or a solution or base of some sort. With that in, I'm going to add 375 milliliters of vegetable oil. This also can be replaced with any flavorless oil, but please no olive oil. Whilst at it, next is 600 grams of sugar. Here I have 300 grams of brown sugar for texture and flavor and extra moisture, and 300 grams of granulated sugar. You can replace this 50-50 mixture with granulated sugar altogether or caster sugar. I chose granulated sugar because caster sugar with its smaller particles or granules makes for a very lighter, fluffy mix in a creaming process. But because I'm going to be melting the sugar altogether, granulated sugar, even though it has bigger granules, is going to be melted down altogether. Now, whilst the mixture is over the heat, the idea is to leave it to simmer enough for the sugar to melt down, and then it will be taken off. Be careful not to boil the mixture all together, because that will essentially, during the cake making process, will cook the eggs. So to avoid that, it will have to sit on the side until it comes down to a cooler temperature, which means that our bake is going to take longer. So for that reason, be mindful not to boil your mixture all together. I'm going to add 225 mils of sour cream. Sour cream can be replaced with milk or buttermilk. All the substitutions and replacements I have indicated here will be left in the description box with further instructions for you to follow, which should give you the same finish of the bake we're making. So please do check it out. Finally, into our liquid mixture, I am going to add 100 grams of dark chocolate chips. This is actually a bar of dark chocolate chips, 70% cocoa, that I am just going to add to this liquid mixture here. That should add to the chocolate flavor. I kid you not, this particular chocolate cake is very decadent and is any chocolate lover's dream. So do try this recipe and let me know what you think in the comment section below. Whilst our liquid mixture is simmering over low heat over here, I'm going to go ahead and mix the cocoa powder and our self-raising flour with a pinch of salt together. These are our dry ingredients. Now, if you wonder why I am using self-raising flour, that is simply because self-raising flour already contains the rising agent or the soda that will let this bake rise. If you do not have access to self-raising flour, I will leave a link below for you to check how to make your own self-raising flour. But if you have access to plain flour or all-purpose flour, that is also fine. All you have to do is add some bicarbonate of soda and some baking powder. With that said, I have mixed my cocoa powder with my self-raising flour. Remember, we have 100 grams of chocolate in our mixture already. The mixture has been taken off from the heat and you're looking for it to come to about 40 degrees Celsius, or dip your finger in it and see if it's at body temperature. That should be fine, but for extra caution, I'm going to leave it on the side for 10 minutes to cool down, and then we're going to proceed and mix it in together with our dry ingredients. Hello, with the liquid mixture left to cool on the side, there is still my dry ingredients, some vanilla here, 4 broken eggs and a greased and lined tin. These are the PME 6" by 4" deep tins, which I love to use. If you've watched my videos for a little while now, you will find that I do recommend the PME tins, which are great for baking and are very affordable. Liquid mixture is cool enough for use, so I am going to go ahead, stir that in slightly and then pour that over our dry ingredients. I'm going to create a hole in the flour mixture and then pour this in slowly whilst mixing it in. Like I said, this is very quick, easy and simple to make. We are actually going to be mixing this together with either the whisk, finishing it off with the hand mixer. Be careful not to overmix the mixture here. But here we have it. Can you tell how chocolatey this looks? But mind you, there's one last thing we need to put in here, which is the eggs. I'm going to beat this and break it slowly. I'm going to be mixing this in slowly using the hand mixer. With the eggs mixed in, the last thing to go in is a drop or two of vanilla in here. I'm going to stir that in. Mind you, whilst this is all happening, I have the oven preheated at 165 degrees where this cake will be baking for anything between 55 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. With the mixture all done here, I'm going to go ahead and pour that into our pre-greased and lined tins in here. And I think I have 2 equal batter poured into the tins here. With the batter distributed into the tins equally, I'm going to go pop it in the oven and leave it to bake for any time between 55 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, after which I'll come back and then we'll continue with the next step of the baking. And welcome back. Our cake is baked and I ended up baking it for exactly an hour and 30 minutes at 165 degrees Celsius. So bear that in mind. I'm going to take that out of the pans and give you a good glimpse of what this delicate cake looks like. It has a slight dome, but we're going to be able to level that off, giving us a good chance of a level cake when we come to stacking this layered cake. And I'm going to take the second one out as well. Now, I am not exactly sure if lining my tins makes a difference, especially for these particular tins that I use. But I have said before, I do this out of habit. But in future videos, I'll be able to bake with a lined tin and just a simple greased tin and see what difference the bakes will be like. When I line my tins with grease-proof paper, it allows me the chance for taller cakes, which could be used for double-barreled cakes. Having shown you the cake, it is warm to touch, so I'm going to put that in the freezer, giving it a good chance to cool completely before we can move on to the next part of the decoration process, where we can level, fill and stack this cake. I'll be back shortly. Hello and welcome back. I've left the cake to chill for a little over 2 hours and it is very cool to touch now. Aside from keeping it chilled for this tutorial, I'll recommend that if you want to use this particular recipe to make a cake, you make it in advance, maybe a day before, and leave it on the side for up to 24 hours. A good tip is also to wrap the cake immediately after baking in a cling film and freeze it overnight. Take it out and let it come to room temperature when you're ready to use it. That way it gives you a very nice crumb on the side and it's very easy to handle during the decoration process. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a few tools that we will need to level and decorate this cake. Over here I have the hand mixer, which is going to be used to whip the ganache. I have a leveler here. A leveler is a simple tool that helps you level the cakes into layers. Of course, if you do not have a leveler to hand, you can use a regular serrated knife or a very sharp kitchen knife. I've used both and both work, except I realized that the leveler tends to make things much more easy. I also have a cake drum on which I will be decorating the cake. But before that, there is a cake card. The cake card goes on top of the cake drum and on which the cake is layered. The card then serves as a barrier between the cake drum and the cake and helps for easy handling when transferring the cake. The next thing I have here is a cake scraper. Now this is the scraper I picked up from B&Q a little while ago that I use in scraping the side of the cake. But if you do not have that to hand, a dough cutter like this can also serve as a scraper on the side. I also have 2 sets of offset spatulas. I do have a collection of these to hand, but in my experience I found out that these 2 are the most that I use more than anything else. And of course I have a mixing bowl here in which all these items have been placed. To level the cake, I am going to adjust the leveler to suit the height of the cake that I will be cutting. Essentially, because we have a dome, I'm going to get rid of the dome, leaving us with a level edge, and then I'll go in with the leveler to slice the cake up. With one cake, I will be using the leveler, and the other cake, I will be using a serrated knife. On the leveler, there are marks on the side, which you can then use to adjust the height of this string, which will be used to cut. I'm just going to mark the leveler against the side of the dome, and then slowly I will move this across. All you're doing here is a soaring motion, and that's all. Yeah. And there you have it. With that done, I have adjusted I set the leveler to give me 2 even slices. And with that, we've got one layer here and the next layer. With that done, I am going to use a serrated knife to try and level the cake, just so that you can observe and make a choice of which is easier. Whilst I was showing you the tools and materials I need to decorate this cake, I forgot to mention a turntable. A turntable is a very useful tool that will help you decorate your cake easily. There are a few ones that range from inexpensive to super expensive one, but this one is £6 that I picked up from my local Sainsbury's many years ago. For all my cake decorating career, I have decorated using this simple turntable. You can use this or a Lazy Susan, one of which I picked from IKEA but has proven no use to me. On that, I have a non-slip mat. So the non-slip mat stops the board from sliding when you are using the turntable. And on that, I am going to place the cake board, and the cake is going to go over that. Using the same principle of trying to take off the dome, I am just going to score around the dome by turning the cake itself slowly. Because the cake is fresh, it's a little bit crusty. Normally, like I said, I would bake this cake, leave it to chill or for 24 hours, or freeze it and then bring it back to room temperature. By doing so, the crust tends to be soft because of the moisture, and it's easier to cut through. There are several methods when using the serrated knife, like measuring the side and everything else. But essentially, what is important for you to know is how to turn the cake whilst keeping the knife stable so that you can cut through it. If you saw through it, you will get uneven marks. With that, I am marking about 1.2 inches there. That's a simple mark there, and with the knife on that side, I'm going to go around and score it by keeping my palm on the cake to keep it steady. Knife in place whilst I turn the cake. And whilst you turn the cake with the turntable, observe the knife is not moving and I'm not soaring through. With that done, the cake is level, and that is it here. So we have 4 layers of cake leveled. I'm going to wipe this up come back, we will whip the ganache, and then we'll move on to the next phase of this decorating process. With our cake leveled, the next thing to do is to begin the decorating process. But before anything else, I'm going to try and whip the ganache so that it comes to a very light, fluffy and smooth consistency. When you're whipping the ganache, you just have to look out for when the color changes. It goes from the darker color that it is to a very light consistency. Be careful not to over whip it. And with that is our whipped ganache. I'm going to leave that and take just a little bit of ganache there, spread it on the cake drum or cake board, and then apply the card on it. Advisably, when you spread the ganache on the cake drum and apply the card, put it in the fridge to chill completely so that it can set and sit on the cake drum. So when you come to frosting the cake, it will not move around. But I've done this one too many times, so I'm going to skip that very quickly. And I'm going to apply another dollop of ganache on top of the cake card. And then our first layer of cake is going to sit on this. Having done this, I am going to put it in the fridge for the ganache to set and the cake to sit properly. This should take about 10 to 15 minutes. That will help when I come to filling the cake so that things are not moving or shifting around at all. The cake layer has been left in the freezer for 10 minutes, and now I am going to go ahead and create a dam around the inside of the cake with ganache so that I can fill the inside with some biscuit filling. To make it even, I am going to scoop a spoon and a half of biscuit filling in here, and I'm going to spread it in slightly, making sure that it is even. On top of that, I am going to layer the second cake. For every layer of cake that I put on top, I will have to chill before following it up with the next layer. I am going to put this cake in the freezer for about 20 minutes to chill completely before I can cover it in the covering of whipped ganache. So I'm going to do that, clear up, and I'll be back to show you the next phase of this decoration process. The cake has been left in the freezer for about 10 minutes and the sides are set. Advisably, you could leave it in longer, but of course, it's set enough for me to work with. So on top of the cake you have some ganache, and I am going to spread this ganache across the top of the cake so it's even. And then on the side, I am going to move or slide the palette knife across, shifting the ganache and spreading it around. And then on the side, the thing with milk chocolate is that it is sweet enough to cover a cake and it's not sickly and heavy with the chocolate. With this, I'm going to leave it in the freezer for another 10 minutes for the outside to set, and then I will scrape quickly and leave it polished, and then we'll come back, do the drip and the swirls at top. Cake has been left to set a little bit in the fridge. Now I'm going to go around with the scraper again. This time I've warmed the scraper slightly just to give me a clean finish. I'm not too worried about perfection to this cake, to be honest. But to be able to decorate a cake and to get a good base over which you can ice a cake, you probably have to follow the steps I have shown in this video and the tips to get you to at least a clean finish of a cake. With that, I'm going to use a regular knife to cut on. There are several techniques to get the top leveled, but of course for me, I am going to be putting some swirls atop this, so I am not too concerned about the top being perfect. But as you can see, we have a smooth iced chocolate cake sitting here with whipped ganache. I'm going to pop it in the fridge to chill completely, and then I'll transfer it onto a cake stand and then do the drip, and then we can come and do the swirls on top. So here comes the transfer part where I slide a kitchen knife under the cake and move it slightly onto a cake stand. Hello and welcome back. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you for your time. We're almost finished. And if you found value in this video and have learned something valuable, please consider subscribing. Click the notification bell to be notified of videos like this and more and other ones. And share this video to indicate some form of interaction. With that said, our cake is set over here, and I have white chocolate ganache which is going to be used as a drip. This is 100 grams of white chocolate mixed with 50 ml of double cream. I'm going to just pour that over the cake, but if you want the melting instructions and everything, check the description box below. I will be leaving all the information there for you. I am not aiming for perfection of this drip. I'm just aiming for it to fall on the side just enough, and there you have it. So whilst this is dripping on the side of the cake, I am going to go ahead and pipe The final part of this decoration is to add our Biscoff biscuits. Over here I have just a few selection of Biscoff biscuits that I am going to slide in between the swirls of chocolate ganache. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is essentially a cake that is, and I am just going to add a sprinkle of the biscuits just to add some crunch. But when that is done, I'm also going to sprinkle some of the biscuits on top here as a final decoration. And essentially that is our cake done and dusted. This is a simple, quick and easy chocolate cake that is filled with ganache, some biscuit spread covered in some ganache and with swirls of ganache atop and some biscuit atop it. So what's left is for us to cut into this cake and see what it is like. So I'm going to go ahead and cut into this cake and then we'll see what the slice in it looks like. So with a knife in hand, I'm going to go ahead and cut a slice from this cake and we'll see what it looks like from within. With that and a knife in hand, I am just going to pull. Oh my goodness, can you see what this looks like? Well, I'm just gonna leave that here. Oh wow. As a cake maker, I must confess, I don't get to see the insides of a cake very much. So I'm going to dig in with a fork. Oh dear, the table wants to share my slice. I'll get a bit of chocolate, some biscuit, this cake definitely needs no talking. You're gonna have to try this and let me know what you think. But for me, this is the ultimate cake anyone needs. And with that, I say goodbye and I'll see you in my next video.